There's a spot on my cabinet door right above the stove where the paint used to be white. Now it's gone kind of amber, almost like it's got a suntan. I noticed it 3 winters ago when I went to wipe up some bacon grease that had splattered while I was frying up breakfast for the grandkids. I wiped it, figured that was that, and moved on with my morning. It took me almost a year to realize the wipe hadn't done a thing. The grease hadn't come off my cabinet, it had soaked into it. By the time I really looked, that door had a yellow halo baked right into the finish, and no amount of scrubbing was bringing it back. I ended up having to sand that door down and repaint it myself, and let me tell you, that is not how I wanted to spend a Saturday. That's the thing nobody tells you about kitchen cabinets. They don't get ruined all at once. They get ruined a little bit at a time, one skipped wipe down after another, until one day you're standing in your kitchen wondering why your cabinets look 10 years older than the rest of your house. So here's what I want to show you today. A cleaning system that gets your cabinets painted laminate or real wood completely free of that sticky, greasy film without stripping the finish, without leaving streaks, and without spending a dime on some fancy cabinet spray from the store. The whole thing costs about $4 in supplies you likely already have under your sink, and it takes about 20 minutes for an average kitchen. I've been doing it this way for over 40 years, and I have never once had to repaint a cabinet since I figured out where I went wrong that first time. My name is Linda. I've kept house for over 4 decades now, raised 3 kids on one paycheck, and spent a good stretch of those years helping run a 60-room motel that my husband Earl managed out on the Florida highway. When you're responsible for cleaning kitchenettes in 60 rooms, you learn real fast what actually cuts grease and what's just marketing on a bottle. I never bought a single one of those cabinet cleaning sprays they sell for $8, $9 a can. Not once in 40 years, and my cabinets have outlasted plenty of my neighbors' cabinets, the ones who bought every product on the shelf. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how to clean your cabinets the right way, from the tops down to the insides of the drawers, and you're going to know why they get greasy in the first place, which is honestly half the battle. And I'll be honest with you about something that used to make me a little annoyed once I figured it out. Cabinet manufacturers, cleaning companies, none of them have any reason to tell you that plain dish soap and warm water does the job better than their specialty spray. Why would they? There's no money in telling you to use something you already own. Nobody's plotting anything against you. I don't believe that for a second. They just don't go out of their way to mention what already works, because what already works doesn't sell bottles. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you won't need to buy a single cabinet product again. Here's what most folks get wrong, and it was what I got wrong for years before Earl's mother straightened me out on it. Most people clean their cabinets the same way they clean a countertop. They grab a rag, maybe spray something on it, and they wipe. One pass, done. But grease doesn't sit on a cabinet surface the way water does. It bonds to it, especially once it's had heat behind it, which it always has in a kitchen because you're cooking near those cabinets. Heat opens the pores of that finish just enough for grease to work its way in. So when you do one dry wipe or even one wet wipe, you're not lifting the grease off, you're just spreading a thinner layer of it around and pushing the dust that was sitting on top of it right into the mix. That's how you end up with that dull, slightly tacky look on cabinets that look clean but never quite feel clean. You have to actually break the grease down chemically before you wipe, not just push it around, and you have to rinse it away instead of leaving a soap residue behind that just collects dust all over again. That's the whole secret, and it took me embarrassingly long to figure it out. Let's walk through it start to finish. Before you touch a single wet rag, you want to get the loose dust and crumbs off the cabinets first. I cannot stress this enough, because if you skip this step, that dust mixes with your cleaning solution and turns into a gritty paste that's honestly harder to deal with than the grease was to begin with. Grab a dry microfiber cloth or a duster, something with some texture to it that'll grab dust instead of just pushing it around, and go over every cabinet door, starting at the top of your kitchen and working your way down. Gravity's going to help you here. Whatever you knock loose up top is going to fall down onto the counters and floor, where you'll sweep it up at the end anyway, so there's no sense starting at the bottom. Pay close attention to any little ledge or groove your cabinets have. The top edge of a raised panel door, the crown molding up top if you've got it. Dust just loves to sit in those little lips and corners, and if you skip them, you'll drag that dust straight into your wet cleaning water in the next step. If you'd rather vacuum than dust, that's fine too. Just put a soft brush attachment on it. A stiff attachment can scuff a painted finish faster than you'd think, and I learned that one the hard way on a hallway cabinet that still has a faint scratch mark from a vacuum nozzle I got lazy with back in the 90s. Now for your cleaning solution, and this is where I want you to really listen, because this is the part that saves you money and saves your finish. If your cabinets are painted or laminate, which covers most kitchens built in the last 30 or 40 years, all you need is a few drops, and I mean 2 or 3 drops, of a basic grease-cutting dish soap in a bucket of warm water. That's it. That's the whole recipe. A bottle of dish soap runs you about $3 and will last you a solid year of cabinet cleanings, doing the dishes on top of that. If you've got real natural wood cabinets, unfinished or oil finished, not the painted kind, you'll want an oil soap made for wood instead of dish soap, because dish soap can dry natural wood out over time. A bottle runs around $5, and here's the thing almost nobody tells you: a little goes a long way. I use 1 capful, not a whole glug of it, in a full bucket of warm water. Use too much, and it leaves its own greasy residue behind that actually attracts more dust than the grease did in the first place, and then you're right back where you started. Now here's my 3 towel system, and this is honestly the piece that changed everything for me. You want 3 separate cloths, not 1. The first one gets dipped in your soapy bucket, that's your cleaning towel. The second one gets dipped in a second bucket that's just plain water, no soap, that's your rinse towel. And it's the step people skip that ruins their finish over time. The third towel is dry, and it's a microfiber if you've got one. And that's your buffing towel that dries the surface completely and leaves it shining instead of streaky. Here's why the second towel matters so much. If you clean with soap and never rinse, that soap dries on the wood or the paint as a thin, filmy residue. You won't see it right away. But dust sticks to that residue worse than it ever stuck to plain wood. So within a few weeks, your cabinets look dull and grimy again, faster than they should, and you start thinking you need to clean more often or buy a stronger product. You don't. You just skip the rinse. Wash, rinse, dry all 3 towels, every single door, top to bottom. For any stubborn spots that don't lift with the towel alone, and by your stove you will have some, grab a soft bristle brush. An old toothbrush works wonderfully for this. Warm it under some tap water so the bristles soften up, and give the spot a gentle scrub before you go back through with your rinse towel. The area right around your stovetop is going to need this treatment more than anywhere else in your kitchen, and honestly, it may need a full second pass of the whole 3 towel system, because that's where the heat and the airborne grease concentrate the most. Don't feel like you did something wrong if it takes you 2 rounds there. That's just physics, not a failure on your part. I want to tell you about something that happened in my own kitchen. Back when my youngest, my daughter Carol, was maybe 6 years old, she decided she wanted to help me make pancakes. And being 6, she poured about half the bottle of vegetable oil into the pan instead of a tablespoon. That oil hit the hot pan and threw grease clean up onto the cabinet above the stove, a good 3 feet up. I didn't have time to deal with it properly that morning, kids to get to school, so it sat there for a couple days. By the time I got to it, that grease had cooked itself into the paint from the residual heat of the stove being used those following days. It took me 4 full passes of my 3-towel system to get it back to looking right. And that's when I really learned the lesson about wiping things up the same day, not letting grease sit and bake in. Now, if something splatters, even if I don't have time for the full cleaning, I at least give it a quick wipe with a damp rag before it has a chance to set. Saves me the 4-pass ordeal every time. While we're up close to the cabinets, take a second and notice your hardware, your handles and knobs, and the corners of the doors right around them. Those get touched dozens of times a day by hands that just finished cooking or eating, so they build up grease and grime faster than any other spot on the cabinet besides the stove area. Give those an extra pass with your cleaning towel each time you go through this whole process. If you've got white cabinets, and I'll be straight with you here because I learned this one the expensive way, that grease buildup by the stove doesn't just sit there looking dull, it actually yellows the white paint over time as it oxidizes with heat exposure. That amber stain I told you about at the start of this video on my own cabinet, that's exactly what happened to me. If you've got white cabinets near your stovetop, I really do recommend a quick wipe down once a week, just the stove area, not your whole kitchen, to keep that grease from ever having the chance to build up and start that yellowing process. It takes 90 seconds and it will save you a repaint job down the road. For any marks that just won't budge even after a few passes, especially on white paint, a fine abrasive sponge, the kind that's basically a very fine grit sanding pad in sponge form, works wonders. You can find these for about $1.50 a piece at any grocery or hardware store. But go easy with it and use light pressure because that sponge is essentially sanding your finish at a microscopic level. And if you scrub too hard or too long in one spot, you can actually take the paint or the finish right off along with the stain. I press just firm enough to feel the mark lifting, nothing more. One more thing on technique before we move to the insides of your cabinets. I always apply my cleaning solution with a rag dipped in a bucket, never a spray bottle, and there's a real reason for that beyond habit. When you spray a cleaner straight onto a vertical painted surface, gravity takes over before you can wipe it, and it runs down in thin streaks. On painted wood, those drip marks can actually etch themselves into the finish if they sit even a minute or two, and once that happens, it's permanent. A bucket and a rag gives you full control over exactly how much liquid touches the surface and for how long, so you never get that dripping problem to begin with. Now, the insides of your cabinets deserve their own conversation because I know from experience that if you try to empty your whole kitchen out at once to clean the insides, you will regret it by lunchtime. Every counter covered in dishes, kids or grandkids underfoot asking when lunch is, and you halfway through with nowhere to put anything back. Do one cabinet at a time. Fully empty it, dust or vacuum the inside just like you did the outside. Run through the same 3-towel system. Let it dry completely before anything goes back in, because trapped moisture in an enclosed cabinet can actually warp the wood or the shelf liner over time. I'll tell you a trick I picked up over the years too. While I've got a cabinet emptied out, I take a minute to look over everything I'm putting back. If there's a casserole dish I haven't used in 3 years or a coffee mug nobody in my house has picked up since the Clinton administration, that's when it goes in a donate box instead of back on the shelf. If you end up with a cleaner cabinet and a lighter cabinet at the same time, if a full kitchen deep clean feels like too much right now, and some weeks it absolutely is too much, just do the cabinets you use every single day. Your spice cabinet, your everyday dish cabinet, and anything right next to the stove, because those collect the most grease and the most spilled bits of whatever you are cooking. Everything else can wait for your spring or fall cleaning. Drawers are their own animal, especially a junk drawer or a utensil drawer that's gotten a little out of hand. Instead of dumping everything straight onto your counter, grab a plastic bin or even a cardboard box, load the contents into that, Clean the drawer with your usual system, let it dry, and then sort as you put things back in. You'll naturally declutter as you go, and you won't have 40 utensils scattered across your countertop while you're trying to work. So why does any of this actually work? And I want to explain this in plain terms because I think it helps to know the why, not just the how. Kitchen grease is made up of fats and oils don't mix with plain water. That's just basic chemistry. Oil and water separate every time. Dish soap works because it's got molecules that are built with two different ends, one end that bonds to grease and one end that bonds to water. That soap molecule literally grabs onto the grease on one side and lets the water on the other side carry it away when you rinse. That's not marketing talk. That's how soap has worked since ancient civilizations first started making it out of animal fat and ash thousands of years ago. And it's the same basic mechanism in a $3 bottle of dish soap as it is in an $8 specialty cabinet spray. The specialty spray usually just adds fragrance, some thickening agents, and a nicer bottle. The active grease cutting ingredient is doing the same job either way. That's also why the rinse step matters so much. If you don't rinse, you leave a thin film of that soap with the grease still bonded to one end of it, sitting right there on your cabinet surface. It dries, it looks fine for a day or two, and then it starts attracting new dust and grime to itself because that residue is naturally a little sticky. Rinsing carries the grease and the soap both away instead of just leaving them to dry in place. Now let's talk money, because this is the part that used to genuinely bother me once I understood it. A name brand cabinet cleaning spray runs you anywhere from $6 to $10 a bottle, and most of those bottles don't last more than a couple months in a kitchen that actually gets used. Over a year, that's somewhere around $40 to $60 just on cabinet spray for a kitchen that dish soap and water handles just as well. My whole 3-towel system costs about $4 total in supplies. And that same bottle of dish soap and that same bucket last me the better part of a year. I'm not saying anybody's out to trick you. I just don't think the companies selling those sprays have any incentive to stand up and tell you their product does the same basic job as something already sitting under your sink. There's no profit in that conversation, so it just never gets had. That's not a conspiracy, that's just how selling things works, and once you see it that way, it's hard to unsee. If an old housewife's tricks like this one are worth a few minutes of your time, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the thumbs up. It genuinely tells me you'd like more of this kind of thing, and I've got a whole lot more where this came from after 40 years of doing this. I actually put this exact system, along with dozens of other things I picked up running a household and helping keep a 60-room motel spotless over the years, into a book I put together called Linda's Homekeeping Handbook. It's got the cabinet method plus a good number of other kitchen and household routines I never bothered to buy a product for. There's a link down in the description below if you want the whole collection in one place. So here's what I want you to actually do this weekend. And I mean actually do, not just nod along and forget by Monday. Grab a bucket, warm water, and whatever grease-cutting dish soap you've already got under your sink. That's $0 if you own dish soap already, or about $3 if you need to grab a bottle. Dust your cabinets top to bottom first. Don't skip that step. Then wash with your first towel, rinse with your second, dry and buff with your third, going top to bottom through your whole kitchen. Give the area around your stove a little extra attention, maybe a second pass. If you've got white cabinets by the stove, put a weekly 90-second wipe down on your calendar so you never end up with that yellowing I dealt with on mine. And if your drawers or the insides of your cabinets have gotten away from you, pick just one to tackle this weekend, empty it into a bin, clean it, sort it, and put it back. You don't have to do the whole kitchen in one day. One cabinet done right beats a whole kitchen done halfway. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what your cabinets look like right now. Be honest, mine had that amber stain for a year before I really dealt with it, so there's no judgment here. I read every single one of these comments, and if you've got a trick of your own that's worked for you, I genuinely want to hear it because I'm always picking up something new even after 40 years at this. And if you want the rest of what's in that handbook I mentioned, including a laundry trick that saved me a fortune on stain removers over the years, the link's right there in the description below. Next time, I'm going to show you the exact reason your white kitchen towels turn gray no matter how much bleach you use, and it has almost nothing to do with the bleach. It's a mistake nearly everyone makes in how they wash them, and once you see it, you won't believe you didn't catch it sooner. The women who kept this country's homes running knew things we're only just starting to remember.